Cool. We're live. I think we're live. Okay, hello. Thanks for coming on, everyone. Hi, I'm Ben, Head of Digital here at the County Council. So our sixth show and tell, we're live streaming, we think, to the internet. It sometimes works, so no swears. Team's going to give you a bit of progress on how we've been doing with designing and building a website for the new council. Show and tells, I think lots of you have been to one before, so I'll keep it really short. Chance for us to share the work the team have been doing, and a chance for you to ask questions, give us observations, critique the work we've been doing. We'd love to hear from you. Ask questions as we go through. Hang around afterwards, whatever's best for you. It really, really does help if we can hear from you. Again, if you've been to a show and tell before, we've talked about this a lot. We're taking a very user-centered approach. This means we're talking to lots of real people, we're testing with real people, and you'll see some of that in a bit, where the team have been out over the last few weeks. It also means it's quite a dynamic way of kind of planning and managing a project, and we shifted our focus a little bit over the last couple of weeks because we had a slightly new deadline that we needed to hit, and we'll tell you all about that in a second. But luckily our kind of approach to planning and managing work let us very quickly shift to a slightly new focus. So the thing we're doing as a team is to build a new website and all the things that go into making a website work. So a content management system, the architecture, so the technology infrastructure that the website sits on and runs on, a design system, which is all of the kind of the pieces that make up a website, and how we describe those and define those so that particularly other third parties, when they're building websites, can do things in a way that's consistent with that as well. We have a kind of content strategy and an approach for how we write content, how we govern the process of getting content designed, written, published onto our new website as well. So there's quite a lot that goes into this, and the goal of this is to make it as easy to use as possible. So effectively helping residents get things done. We've talked about this a lot before, but people don't come to kind of hang out on the council website. Generally they want to do something and kind of go away, and our job is to help them do that pretty quickly, let them get some time back in their day and get on with other things that they probably want to be doing. And particularly in these first bits of becoming a unitary authority, we've got a real responsibility to help people not get lost. There's lots of websites, it's going to be a little bit confusing, and this new thing we're adding, our kind of real driver in these early bits of the project, is to just make sure we help people get to where they need to be and try not to make it any more confusing than it might already be. So, big news. Ta-da! There's a website and it works, and it's for real, it's on the internet, and it's there at buckinghamshire.gov.uk. So I hinted a moment ago, we have some branded things are going to start appearing in public quite soon, and to make sure that something was up there and working for when anything with this URL starts rolling around the streets of Buckinghamshire, we needed to shift focus a little bit and get this thing launched a few weeks earlier than planned. So the last couple of weeks the team have done a kind of stellar job. So technical colleagues have been doing the work to get the infrastructure ready, to get the thing into a real production kind of domain, to get all of the administrative stuff behind the scenes working well, and colleagues in the content team have been very quickly kind of adding content to provide signposts and links off to where people will need to go in the short term. So there's loads of caveats with this. It is not finished by any stretch of the imagination, but if somebody does happen to come across this URL, and we're not shouting about it too loud, so don't throw it up on any kind of major communications thing just yet. He said live streaming it to the internet. If residents do start to use it, that's totally fine. We've made it clear that this is a work in progress. We've asked people to give feedback if they do happen to kind of come across this. They will quite quickly see there's not a huge amount you can do on it just yet, but hopefully it will get you to where you need to be. So really quick demo. I'm not going to spend too much time on this because you can now go away. and do this for yourself. So if you pop buckinghamshire.gov.uk into your browser, the site's there. So as I say, it's on the internet for real. Colleagues in tech were super helpful in getting all of the domain name stuff sorted out in absolutely no time at all yesterday morning. And so, yeah, it looks incredibly similar, you'll be pleased to see, to the designs we've been kind of sharing as we've been going through. We haven't done a kind of big bait and switch at the end. And a lot of the sections, as you'll see, they'll have these banners at the top that just explain to people, this is a work in progress right now. I'd love to have your feedback, but please don't expect this to do everything a council site should do. And it will very quickly. So if we go into household bin collections, as an example, most of the pages are going to look a little bit like this. They might have a very short, brief description of the thing that people are trying to do, but then say you need to go off to one of the existing council websites to do that. And this is likely to be the position kind of post-April as well for a lot of services. We've talked a little bit before. We haven't got the time to do the design work with every single service, and a lot of our services aren't quite ready yet anyway to have a kind of single, unified way of delivering a service on day one. So lots and lots of signposting. Things like the postcode search. So at the moment, we've not built one. So we're sending people off to Gov.uk. They've got one, it works quite well. So for now, if somebody is a bit confused about who their local council is, they can use the Gov.uk search, find it, and find their way back. In the future, obviously, that needs to be an address search that we kind of own, operate, and run, so that we can point people to the right council. And you'll find shortcuts a bit like this throughout the site as it stands today, so that people at least can do the thing that they're trying to do. So I think I'm probably not going to demo any more of the website than that, because that's, broadly speaking, that's how the thing works at the moment. Just to say, it is a proper production ready site now. So the team are adding content behind the scenes. As we're developing kind of new features, they will just be kind of regularly flowing into this production site, so that new things will appear all the time, week to week, and we'll obviously keep you all updated as you come to these show and tells. So back to the slides. You'll hear from someone else in a minute. So we're going to now talk about the things that have been happening over the last 2 weeks. Obviously, I've just kind of given you a little bit about getting this website. We call it a private beta, just a nice bit of digital jargon there. Private beta, minimum viable product, lots of ways of describing this. What we mean by that is it's a very limited release with a very controlled kind of subset of users. So we will do testing with people. We will let them know. We will have handfuls of people who we share this URL with. Some people might stumble across it, as I say, because of some of the branding that's happening. But generally speaking, people who are interacting with this is because we've invited them to do it, and we're asking for feedback, or we're sitting down and doing user research with them. We're for as long as we can get away with not doing a kind of big public release just yet. So some other bits and pieces behind the scenes. We've used the GDS Notify service. So for within the administration of the system, so when content editors and publishers sign in, if they've forgotten their password, the thing that emails them a password reset link is the Gov Digital Services Notify platform. It's a great, really good, robust central government service. It's free. It works really well. So we've kind of used that rather than kind of building our own or buying a commercial service to do that. Lots of testing. Collie's going to talk about that, how we've been testing over the last few weeks, both on the main site, but also the find and apply for a job service, which we've talked about a little bit before. And specifically, the team have been working on, so colleagues at Torchbox have been figuring out some of the integration work between TalentLink, which is our HR system, and this website. So there's some fairly complicated stuff that happens behind the scenes to kind of automatically make jobs appear on this new website. So I'm going to hand over, I think, to, is it Boris? No, content, getting the site ready.
Me? Yeah.
Your marks behind
the
mark.
So 2 weeks to get all of the content ready for a new website. Our focus was on the libraries. We shifted that a little bit to try and make sure that we had everything accurately as possible. It was all about building the navigation out. It's all these terminologies. A lot of the work had been done before, but as soon as you start making it real, all of a sudden you realise that things aren't quite as streamlined as you think, and the districts all call things slightly differently. So what it was about was getting the terminology correct, getting people to the right place, In terms of content, there's very, very little there, but what it does do is it takes people to the correct location, and making sure that it's accurate and not wrong. We can always fix it, make improvements, but what we don't want to do is give people inaccurate information. So we spent as much of our time as we possible making sure that we were linking out to the correct places, and then in a few cases we discovered that about Buckinghamshire, there's not a single council has any information about our authority, about our county, about themselves, but not about our county. So in the end, we don't have that link. We will go back and revisit that and see whether that's something that we need. But for the time being, we just discovered that some of the stuff that we had assumed was in existence just really wasn't in existence across any of our authorities. So yeah, we spent as much of our time as possible just checking all of our links, making sure everything is in the right place, and making sure that we've got accurate information which we can build on for the future, and so that we can reach our April deadline with a little bit more content, a little bit more information. But it's sort of a very basic minimum that we're trying to build. Like I say, in 2 weeks, which is done.
It's a huge effort. And sorry, libraries, we keep putting you back. And we'll get there. It is me. I know. Events.
That's it, I think.
Cool.
Yeah.
Okay. Who's next?
I think that's me. So yeah, as Ben mentioned, we've been doing some testing of different things. One of the things is the homepage and also some of the navigation. So we went to Chesham Library to test slightly different elements of the homepage. So I think I mentioned last sprint or last show and tell, we were thinking about putting some of the content on the homepage in boxes, because we'd heard that kind of improved kind of scannability and legibility. We also kind of dabbled with maybe rearranging some of the areas. So we included a report it area, which kind of subsumed some kind of service elements from different parts. And we were also testing the bit that Ben showed earlier, which was that kind of redirect to district councils. Does that work perhaps outside of the hubs? So if you're in Aylesbury, you probably know that you're Aylesbury Vale. Same with High Wycombe, but in Chesham it's slightly more complicated perhaps, or not quite as intuitive. Some of the outcomes of that, the usefulness of the report something section, fairly limited. So we're asking kind of task-based questions. Would you know where to report a noise disturbance, for example? Probably about 50-50. We're kind of using report versus trying to find a section where like noise disturbance would come under, maybe like environment. So that's something to kind of think about. In terms of like having stuff in the boxes, there wasn't really any kind of clear evidence, I don't think, that was kind of better. It's kind of an aesthetic change, I feel. Quite a few people said that they preferred it, but it feels a bit more like a want rather than a need. There was kind of one comment around it makes it slightly easier to read. I don't have to put my glasses on, so maybe it's slightly more legible and accessible, but that probably needs further testing. So we tried with the boxes, we kind of went away from using bullet points and putting in kind of sentence text. That was, most users said that was not preferable. Utilising the bullet points, kind of observing people using it, they were utilising the bullet points to go directly to kind of service pages. So it appears like that's probably the way to go. So the next step is probably trying out the squares again and putting bullet points in there. Oh, and also I didn't mention, everyone able to get to where they needed in regards to the local area links, so the district council links. They would either use the links to the local councils, or they would use that Gov.uk find your local area. So that worked pretty well. Yeah, so we've also been looking at, in addition to linking away to district councils, there's also suppliers. So these are sites that are provided by a third party. An example of that is paying for a PCN, so thinking about the branding and what the user journey is like for that, trying to keep it as consistent as possible, having links back to the homepage or also the section that you're under. So in this case it would be parking, and we've been building some page elements to give to them, and included in that is some work on a style guide, which Boris is now going to talk about.
Yeah, so I think in the beginning, Ben mentioned already that as part of the project, we want to build a design system, which will make it very clear for anyone in the future working on either this website or specific individual services or third-party suppliers. It will make it very clear for them how to combine these different design elements and what kind of colors to use, what kind of fonts to use. So we've been playing around with a platform that allows you to do that, and I can actually show you what that looks like.
It's on the tabs.
Oops. Is in the tabs. It's here. Yeah. Cool. So this is a very early version of what we want to try to do, and it's basically like a separate link that you can open. It's publicly accessible, or we can protect it with a password, depending on what we decide to do. So you can just share it with anyone, and there's very useful information in there. So for example, what are the colors that we're using? And so if you share this with developers, for example, it's quite easy for them to copy paste all these values. There's all the typography, all the kind of basic layout elements. Also, one of the very useful things of this platform is that it allows you to put all the individual visual elements on it with links to, for example, download. So if someone is building a website and they want to get all the assets that they need, they can just download the logo, for example, and it just puts all of that on their computer. Same for the icons and all of the other elements. And quite importantly, we also have a centralized resource now where we can manage how we want all these different headers to look. So for example, when we're talking about the central website, it has a very simple header, but we also have styles for what the previous BCC pages need to look like now, or like the individual district council websites that are going to be slowly being rebranded from their original look to just have the new logo on it and make them look a bit more cohesive with the new website. So all of that's going to be now available from this centralized resource, so we can just share that openly with anyone. And that's it. So what's next? Present. Who talks about that?
I think.
Yeah.
So that last section, I guess, was more around the homepage, the kind of the style of the I guess the main site. I mean, we're also looking at kind of individual service areas. I think I mentioned this last time, but one of the areas we've focused on early is find and apply for a job, recruitment in Buckinghamshire. In this last sprint, we've been doing a few iterations based on testing in the previous sprint, and then obviously we did some more testing this sprint. We went down to a VDC to do some testing with the HR team there. We tested some changes to the prototype, which you can kind of see there, to try to understand a few kind of questions. Does it make sense, the site, kind of what kind of jobs are advertised there, who the site is for? Is there enough detail to understand what a job listing is? So both on when you kind of search for jobs, can you understand like who is that employer, what the kind of salary is, what the kind of requirements are, and where it is, and things like that. And is it easy to complete the application form? So I think on the current site, it's quite a lengthy application form. It's quite thorough. We've tried to kind of pare it down a little bit to make it a little less daunting. But does that mean that it's still easily able to be completed? Some feedback. There is, I think the main thing is probably around the kind of positioning. So it's a little bit confusing at the moment on the homepage of the find and apply for jobs service. It sort of states, find a job in Buckinghamshire, but actually nearly everyone we spoke to and kind of tested it with just assumed that it was jobs jobs for the council. So the kind of messaging there was kind of confusing. Then there's also the benefits, which only apply to certain job types. That came up pretty much in every interview. The way in which people applied for things, they kind of found it easy to go through. It seemed kind of quite intuitive. they really like the save for later function, but they didn't always notice it at first. It's kind of hidden away at the moment. We need to make that a little bit more prominent. In addition to that, some people talked about having a bit of a user profile. That's probably quite common in other kind of job services, having a profile that you can then, put in regularly input data like your background, your CV, your kind of information about you, your details. So rather than kind of having to do that every time, it would be useful if they could kind of do that via a profile. And yeah, this kind of way of adding or kind of associating benefits with the job, at the moment we haven't quite nailed that. It's we've got kind of a generic page which says these are the benefits for everyone, but they don't really apply to everyone. So it's a little bit disingenuous. But then when you go onto a specific job page, you'll have the benefits that relate to that job, but they may be different to the sort of generic job page. There's a balance, I suppose, between trying to attract people to working in Buckinghamshire, but also being honest about, realistically, these are the kind of benefits that are going to apply to you and that job. So that's something we still need to kind of iron out. Sort of taking a step back, I've been thinking a little bit about like what are the kind of core user needs to maybe kind of frame it. So when we think about user needs, these are things that people actually need. They're not kind of wants. They're quite they kind of allow people to do things. So I'll just go through the list really to understand like what kind of jobs are posted on the site. I think is a clear user need for a job seeker. To understand for each of these jobs who the employer is, that needs to be really clear. To be able to find out the distance, how far it is for me, whether I'm willing to travel there, so perhaps some kind of way of filtering. To know important dates around the interview times, start times. Is it going to be likely that I'm going to be able to apply for it? To know those benefits that are relevant for that job. To be able to save progress or be able to speed up applying for something, and to regularly reuse information. Something that came out of doing the testing actually was that the page where we talked about sort of inclusivity and kind of agile working and flexible working was really important. It actually was the one that had lots of pictures on it, which goes against kind of GovUK, kind of their kind of method, which is to get rid of images altogether as much as possible. But a lot of people said that it kind of showed what the council was about. It showed that the council was innovative. It kind of gave you a bit of an understanding of what it's like to work for the council, or what the kind of jobs would be like, and made them feel welcome. So I think a user need that kind of came out of that was feeling like their employer was inclusive and they would be welcomed in their job. And then also, of course, to be able to browse on desktop and mobile. Lots of people said they'd probably look for jobs on their phone, and then at some point, once they were quite clear that they would like to apply, probably move to a desktop. So we need to obviously make it useful on both formats. So that's it for that, I think. Now we've got next steps.
There's a question.
Just a quick
Yeah.
question.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Sure.
Would we be able to upload volunteering opportunities to the job sites? Is it literally jobs, or can we also do volunteers?
Yeah, I think that's a question. I think we've got a section that's around apprenticeships and...
Yeah, so at the moment it's anything that goes into the HR talent tracking system. So if it's created in there, those are the things that will automatically populate. So it might be, it's an interesting one. It might be an extra user need in there that, if we've got things like volunteering opportunities. We've, I think in one of the previous rounds of research, uncovered some other things that are a bit similar to that, where we don't formally list things as jobs, but we kind of do people a favour by listing other types of vacancy somewhere on our site as well. So there's a few kind of, not quite a formal job, but is kind of a job. So some edge cases to dig out, I think.
Thank you.
No worries.
Any other questions?
What's next? Okay. So it's great. So the bits that are coming next, I think I'll start at the bottom actually. So we need to have a planning session. So we got a little bit kind of not thrown off track, but we had to very quickly adjust a plan to get ready for a launch, which means we kind of paused a few things, didn't finish a couple of things we wanted to do. So I think we're going to probably dig in for a slightly longer planning session on Monday to just make sure we can take a breath, look at all the stuff we've done. We've been speaking to lots of the unitary program groups as well at the moment, so we're just starting to get a bit of a feel for where things are coming in, might be quite important for day one. So it'd be good to just have a look again at some of our priorities for some of the bits and pieces we would want to have ready for day one. We're definitely coming back around to the libraries now as well, so something we started that we want to get back into, so we can keep prototyping with some of that. We've got some interesting choices, I think, to make there around how much do we do with what we've got now versus how much additional effort might we put into building some new features. That's a choice, a set of questions we need to kind of deal with. We want to get some photos of around the office, so we want some more imagery. We're a bit short. Anytime we go to try and grab some images for things, we're a little bit short and kind of rifling through people's iPhones, so it'll be good to get some nice photos done. And we want to come down to Chiltern District Council, I think, next time to do a bit more testing on the jobs sites. And we've already had a few people see the site inside the organisation and have started kind of giving us little bits of feedback. So anything else generally that comes in now that we're starting to kind of share this URL with folks, obviously that will start to give us some useful kind of evidence, some more questions to ask as we get going. So yeah, we'll kind of back into our regular kind of cadence of work, I think. From next week, which means next show and tell will be on the 6th of February, so a couple of weeks time, and it'll be lovely to see you all here. And bring a friend, please. Do let other people know. If anyone can drag some folks from the services, I can see lots of kind of mostly corporate resources type folk here. So yeah, if you've got friends out in children's and adults and other bits and pieces, do tell them to come along. So otherwise, thank you very much for coming. Obviously, here for any questions, ask them now. We'll hang around, whatever works for you.
And I have a question.
Yeah.
So when you go from this side to district council sides, does it open, or would it open actually a new tab, or do you just kind of end up on the side? It's just my more question is about how do you get back to this main site from
going back? Yeah. So I think it just opens in the same. It opens in the same tab you're in, so that the back button will take you back.
Okay.
Doing clever things with breadcrumbs and things like that across sites is a little bit complicated because we all use slightly different designs, slightly different information architectures. So making that seamless, just most people use back buttons and know how to use that. We're also looking at using some banners. So when we start to do the design work on existing sites to do the rebranding of those, it'll include some banners that give people a very clear kind of call to action to say, if you want to go back to the Buckinghamshire Council site, click here. So yeah, it's kind of best efforts that we can.
But we're not looking to really open a new tab.
No, because that would stop the back button working for folks.
Okay.
So that would make it a little bit trickier. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Colin's gone, hasn't he?
It's gone, yeah.
He said he was struggling to find any content about Buckinghamshire. I think in the corporate plan there's some that you might be able to play.
There is, yeah. And Wikipedia does a great job of it as well. So I think it's a good question, which is, people coming to our website generally are here to do a thing, and generally that's a service-based thing. I'd say most people aren't here to browse and find interesting facts about Buckinghamshire. So, are we the right website to be hosting all of that stuff? Again, it's a question, something to explore in the future. Don't think it's a kind of day one priority, but yeah.
So we incorporate visitor information centres for 3 of our library sites at the moment. So
Yeah.
we have that kind of local information on those localities.
Within
so
the
that's a
visitor
question for you
sites.
to-
Yeah.
So, and on our web pages.
Yep.
So including information about Buckinghamshire generally as a county would probably be welcomed by those particular sites.
Yep.
But
Cool.
don't know where you put it.
Yeah, so definitely it's one to look at. As I say, probably not the most important one for day one, but yeah, we'll dig into it.
What do you expect the traffic to be like now it's live?
No idea.
Could you,
Yeah.
I was thinking, could you put a feedback method through the sites, people actually using it live? Rate this page or comment here.
So we've got it's in the banner, little call to action that says if you want to let us have some feedback, please do. So they've got the opportunity to kind of drop us a line, let us know if they've kind of run into anything specific. I think the kind of the phase of development we're in right now, the most useful kind of evidence still is the structure stuff we get through the user testing and user research sessions that we're doing. So actually having a researcher sat with somebody, doing something in context is probably more helpful at the moment than kind of free-form commentary coming in off the web. But yeah, as it gets more developed, more into a live service, we'll start adding more of the analytics capabilities. We'll start looking at other ways for people to let us know, is this specific page causing you a problem? If it is, why is it? We're just not there yet. It wouldn't necessarily add a great deal of useful insight for us at the moment.
Well, one thing we need to maybe get back to is that user research panel group that we've established. So we have about 200 people on the list now, and we can share this link with them and then give them specific tasks. And then we get some quantitative data from that. Like 200 is already quite a decent number. So yeah, we should try that.
Definitely, yeah.
One other question.
Yeah.
Are we likely to introduce any Autobots on the site for in future?
Bots, chatbots, that kind of thing. No,
Yeah.
not if I can help it. So my kind of rule of thumb with this stuff is, only when we've absolutely nailed all of the good, simple stuff around making, good content that works well for people, give people a really good experience just on a very basic website. If we feel like we've got that absolutely smashed out of the park, then we can start looking at other things like guided interfaces and chat. But yeah, I'd say most folk who are kind of running towards that probably haven't fixed the basics yet, and we're definitely still very early, kind of day one minus a few, I think. So it's not yet. Cool. Any more? Very quiet. All right. Well, thank you so much for coming. If you do want to have a chat, do hang about, and we can answer anything else. Bye.
Just need a date on the library, just roughly. 'Cause